As a community chaplain to Great Park and Wantage, I gave an interview to BBC Oxford last week, reflecting on a year that's been, a year of COVID restrictions, a year of pandemic, a year of unexpectedness, and a year that certainly looked very different from the year before. It gave me an opportunity to think about what has gone on in the last year. In many ways, there have been lots of shut doors. I've not been able to go into the care homes I usually go into. The schools across Oxfordshire have closed their doors to visitors and auxiliary staff, and a load of those people I'd usually see in person at Boys Brigade or Guides or Scouts, or even on the street or in the pub or in the cafe, just aren't there to be able to talk to. And if you do see people, it's polite and respectful and kind to keep your 2 meters distance, to not loiter, to wave hello from a distance, and not to go up and have a friendly conversation or a chat. There have been a couple of Zoom things I can do. Great Western Park have a weekly Zoom I join in on. The circuit and the churches in Didcot, Milton and Wallingford have had a number of Zoom events I can join in as well. But in many ways, chaplaincy has looked really different from what's gone on, and very different from perhaps what I might have been expecting at the start of 2020. But in some ways, there have been some really good opportunities. When I was younger, I grew up in the mission field, and I was really into brownies before we moved overseas. I decided when we moved overseas that when I was an adult, I would train as a rainbow guider, a brownie guider, a guide guider, and a ranger guider, so that I could keep all 4 sections going when I went back overseas into the mission field. I've never been back to the mission field, not for any length of time, but during last year, I kept rainbows, brownies, guides, rangers, Cubs, Scouts and Boys Brigade going by joining in Zooms, by listening to kids and their challenges and struggles, and by being creative and trying to think of things to do every week. In the summer last year, all the leaders for the guiding groups in Great Western Park decided to forego summer and have a Zoom every week, working together with those who could Zoom to keep provision going for kids. And I'm glad we could. The parents loved having giving kids something to do, and the kids loved seeing each other and having a different challenge to work towards. Before COVID, we'd probably worked towards maybe 1 badge a term. Year of COVID, or that first few months of COVID, we had multiple badges being worked on. One girl, I think, even got 20 badges on the first term. So there were those things to do. There have also been a bit of kind of downtime and rethinking. I've had an awful lot of opportunity to pray, to think, to be challenged, to study. I've been doing a lot of reading into mental health conditions, and things that people struggle with. I've also been reading and learning about digital church and pioneering or creating new Christian communities and opportunities to share the story of Jesus and the stories of life and hope and faith with people. It's been an interesting year, a challenging year. I feel I've kind of got off fairly lightly. I've not had a lot of mental health issues, and I've had really good and kind, supportive friends. But I was thinking recently at Circuit Lent devotions yesterday about what it means to be in awe, and what it means to find God and see God and encounter God in the everyday. And for me, it keeps coming back to deep, calling to deep. The deep of me can engage with the deep of you. The challenges and the wrestles and the struggles that I have in my everyday life, I don't really feel bold enough, courageous enough, brave enough to share with a lot of other people a lot of the time. We all have struggles. We all have challenges. And I imagine quite a lot of us tend to keep those to ourselves. It takes a lot of guts to be vulnerable. It takes even more so to reach out to a friend when you're struggling, or to share of your story and your encounter with Jesus and your encounter with the darkness, but also light as well. I think for me, there's that challenge to just keep that in the rhetoric. Looking forward to when we come back out of COVID restrictions, and I hope it won't be too long. A lot of people have been vaccinated. I get mine next week. And I'm really looking forward to when I can see friends again, go out to the pub, have a soft drink or a meal, and just be with family, give my mum a hug, go for a walk. not have to worry about remembering my mask every time I go to the shops, not feeling like I have to walk out of a supermarket if it's just too crowded and not safe to be in. Really looking forward to that. But I think a lot of what I've learnt in the last year about being honest, courageous, vulnerable, sharing my story with another, and being prepared to listen to other people's expectations and challenges, putting my sense of ego aside for a moment to listen and engage, but also being able to bring my sense of ego back in and saying, actually, I struggle too. It's not just about me being here for you, but I'll be able to engage, to talk, to challenge, to wrestle, to let the deep call to the deep, to open up my heart and share it with another, to be bold enough to say when I'm asked, how are you? If I'm having a bad day, to say, actually, I'm not great. I'm having a bit of a challenge. And through that, enabling the other person I'm speaking to be able to do the same, to share their challenges and their struggles and their doubts and their hurts with me in turn. There's something quite interesting about chaplaincy over the last year. There's not been so many people to encounter, so many opportunities for spontaneous conversation, but there have been almost more opportunities, more challenge, more possibility to share of what the deep is, to share of the things that I struggle with, to share of the things that matter. I guess my challenge for myself, and probably my challenge for you as well going forward, is how many opportunities are there in a week, in a day, to open up our hearts, to say to one another, how are you? Or how's your soul? Or how are things with your world today? And actually take that step of courage and faith and say, this is how I am. This is where I am. This is who I am. And in turn, enable the deep to speak to the deep, and the awe and awareness of God to grow in our lives, in our minds, in our hearts, and in our communities. So thank you, BBC Oxford, for asking me those questions, for getting me to reflect on the last year, to think about the highlights and the challenges and the joys, and roll on 2021-22 when there are more opportunities to be with each other physically as well as emotionally and mentally.